So hey Lawn Care Nation, today's going to be a super exciting day in the workshop as I get to check out and test out these products from YesWelder. Now YesWelder did send these products out to me to be able to check out and test out and showcase for you guys. So we've got first up here a Cut 65 DS Pro. This is a plasma cutter and I am super excited about adding one of these to my tool arsenal. My Miller MIG welder has been an indispensable tool in my lawn care business over the past 20 years in being able to fabricate custom doors for my trailers and racks and things like that, as well as doing repairs on the trailer and equipment. So being able to add a plasma cutter will just make things so much easier in preparing metal to be able to be repaired or fabricated. Also, we have a YesWelder auto darkening helmet, so we're going to be taking a look at that as well. Now, before we get into these opening up these boxes, let's talk a little bit about some of the specs on this plasma cutter. So this is their 65 DS Pro model, which means that it can output up to 65 amps of cutting power at 220 volts. This is also a dual voltage model, which means that this can be used as well under 110 volts, plugged into your regular like North American 110 volt outlets. At 110 volts, this will output 45 amps. If you've got this plugged into a dedicated 220 volt outlet, then this will be able to output up to 65 amps. So this is also known as a non-high frequency model. So what that means is that this is generally safe to use around some sensitive electronics and for people as well. There's some people that are very sensitive to high frequencies. This is not a high frequency model, so it's safe in those regards as well. And this is also a non-touch pilot arc model. So that's pretty exciting as well, because what that means is that the tip of the actual plasma gun does not need to be touching the surface to be get that initial arc started. It will start the arc when you pull the trigger, and then you can go down to the metal. So that means it will be able to cut through things like painted metal, through rusty metal, and things like that, because it doesn't need to be touching and creating a perfect circuit for it to be working with that ground clamp that you use. Obviously, using cleaner metal is always going to be easier go and cleaner cuts, but this does have the ability with that non-touch pilot arc to be able to go through a lot of different types of materials. So in terms of the cutting capacity for this Cut 65 DS Pro plasma cutter, it all depends on the power source that you're using. So if you have this unit plugged in to a standard like 15 amp 110 volt outlet here in North America, then for a clean cut, you're able to cut up to 5/16 of an inch. The maximum severance cut is 5/8 of an inch. So just over half an inch if you're just doing a dirty cut, like you just need to cut some steel down, will cut just over half an inch at 110 volts. But that's a pretty messy type of a cut. If you want a nice clean cut that you can then weld together and stuff, then at 110 volts, you're looking at 5/16 of an inch. So if you're using this unit plugged into a dedicated 220 volt outlet though, then the ideal clean cut for this unit is 5/8 of an inch. So you can do that just over half-inch thick steel in a clean cut where you'd be able to weld those pieces together. That's absolutely pretty awesome, more than I would ever need to be able to cut. Even quarter inch is probably more than I would ever need to cut for my intended purposes, but pretty awesome that it's able to do that. The maximum severance cut though, if you're just getting dirty with it and you want to just cut some steel down at 220 volts, this will do 63/64 of an inch, just shy of 1 inch. That's pretty crazy. And then for that clean cut, maximum clean cut, you're looking at that 5/8, so just over half an inch, where it will be able to do a very clean cut that you can utilize to use in your fabrication. So pretty darn awesome. All right, so I've opened up the boxes. So let's just start with the auto darkening helmet. So you can see right off the bat here, it has a funky graphic on the side, and these come in a bunch of different graphics. This one's a monster graphic. It's got some eyeballs at the top and some teeth around it. Just kind of a fun little graphic. This unit features kind of 180-degree vision. So it's got the main viewing window there, and it's extra large in the center, but it also has some side windows on the side as well, so that when you've got the helmet on, you can see all the way around you. So you can, for safety as well, see where all the sparks are going and stuff like that. You're not stuck with that tunnel vision of having that little welder glass like traditional welding helmets. This unit can be used for grinding as well as for plasma cutting and for welding. It's got all three settings on the inside underneath the hood there. You can set it to the three different functions, and it's infinitely variable in terms of sensitivity and how dark you want the glass to go to protect your eyes. So pretty awesome there. It's got a little dial on the side that you can adjust the darkness settings there for your intended task. Inside the bag, it comes with a nice cloth drawstring bag that you can store the helmet in and protect it. Very similar to when you purchase a motorcycle helmet. They traditionally come with little bags as well. It comes with two spare shields for the front of the unit there, and also comes with a spare shield for the inside of the unit, as well as a spare battery for that auto darkening feature. So awesome that they give you a bunch of spares there, so you don't have to go looking for those if they get scuffed up. All right, so for the plasma cutter itself, you can see just how small this unit is, small and narrow. It's super lightweight. In fact, I can probably lift it with just 2 fingers. It only comes in at about 17 pounds, so very portable to be able to take with you. Really cool kind of look to it with the black and red. In fact, when looking at this with where the digital display is here and kind of the shape of it, kind of looks like some eyes in a grill, giving me some real Darth Vader type vibes on it. On the front of the unit, it's got one simple dial control. This is for the amperage setting to increase and decrease, as well as it's got a couple of buttons at the top and around the unit. In the corner here, there's a post flow button. That is to increase or decrease the amount of time the air continues to flow after you release the trigger to allow for the tip cooling. On the opposite side here, there's a units button, so you can switch from PSI to MPa, I believe it's called. And then at the top here, there is a steps mode. So it's got a 2T and a 4T mode on it. The 2T mode is basically means that when you pull the trigger, it turns on, and when you let go of the trigger, it turns off. In 4T mode, basically when you pull the trigger, it turns on and it stays on regardless of whether you let go of the trigger, and then you have to pull the trigger and release it again to be able to turn the unit off. So 2 different options there for operation. On the back of the unit here, of course, it comes with a 220 volt cord installed already. It's got your on-off button, and it comes with a air pressure regulator at the top, as well as a water separator filter at the bottom. It's really important with plasma cutters that you're using dry air to be able to have the unit work properly. So it's nice that they include not only the air regulator, but also an water separator filter at the bottom there. I've already got a water filter on my airline, so that it'll be basically going through 2 filters when I'm using it. Inside the box, you're also going to find a section of air line that you can use, some clear tubing here. This is press fit. On the back of this unit, it's got a press fit fitting that you can basically just slide this in and lock in place, and then you can add whatever applicable fitting that you need for your air supply on this end. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So also, you're going to find the ground clamp cable. Nice unit here, pretty sturdy. It's got quite a bit of copper there with a little copper bridge. So you got copper on both sides where it leads to the wire there. So you get good connection. You've got the actual plasma cutting torch here. It comes with a standoff guide there. That's to allow you to have the proper distance from your cutting surface. It's got a safety trigger on it that you have to lift to pull the trigger on this unit so you don't accidentally, inadvertently start that arc, especially this being a non-touch model. That basically it will shoot that arc out there when you press that trigger. And it's got your one simple connection on the side there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. It comes with a tool for changing the tips when they wear out. They also include a 1/4 inch airline fitting. So this is something that we're going to get into a bit. Now, when I was doing my research to find out about this model and to see its capabilities and stuff, I was watching a bunch of other reviews, and they have constantly iterated these machines, making them better with each release. In previous models that I've seen, they all always get outstanding reviews, but there's always room for improvement. And one of the things, there's actually a couple of things that people mention with these units that they would like to see improved. And one has to do with this torch connection here. On previous models, you would have your main torch hook up in here, but there would also be a couple of other loose wires that came off the end here that you'd have to connect separately, and then you'd have these kind of like loose wires here, and people didn't really quite like that. Looking at the front of the unit here, it only has 2 connections, one for the ground and one for this unit. So it looks like they have simplified that process and changed this connection here to include all of those previous connections all in one new connector. So that is an improvement over previous models from what I've seen. The other has to do with this airline fitting, and that is with most of the reviewers that I've seen, they always question why this piece of airline or tubing is included in the box when they say that, you know, they already have their airline with their quick connect on it, and that most of them will just take off that press fitting off of the regulator and just put in one of these 1/4 inch adapters. So it looks like YesWelder has been listening to those previous reviews, because they are now including a 1/4 inch threaded adapter so that you can remove that press fitting and just put in that 1/4 inch adapter instead if you want to use your already existing airline with your quick connects on it. So that's pretty awesome. The other thing you're going to find is a little roll of Teflon tape to be able to install that airline fitting. And then, of course, last but not least is the 220 to 110 volt converter here. So all this does, this doesn't change the voltage. This just changes basically the shape of the plug. The unit itself will self-detect the voltage coming in and will automatically adjust to whether 220 or 110 volt. So this unit here, basically you just take the cover off the plug there, and then you would plug the 220 into that, and now you've got the 110 volt option to be able to plug that in to 110 volt. So I've got this plate of sheet metal here. It's 1/8 inch thick. So we're going to give it its first kind of test cut, see what happens here. I'm going to turn the machine on. And we're at 30 PSI. I'm going to lower it just to see. I'm going to go down to 20. And PSI is at 84 currently. I'm just going to leave the PSI. So put the shield on and see what happens. I'm just going to do a little test cut in the corner here first. So it didn't cut quite all the way, so I'm going to raise the amperage a bit. Try 25. Still not all the way. I'm gonna raise it up. Try 30 amps. So I've got it on 30 amps, 61 PSI. Still kind of getting used to the technique. They're pretty darn clean. All right, so with that one, finally kind of getting that technique down of starting it outside of the metal and carrying it through. I was trying to start it right on the edge there, and I kept missing that first part of the cut, which is why it was sticking. But once I started it outside and then carried it through, then it worked better. So it's a matter of learning the technique. All right, so now I got a piece of rusty 3/8 inch metal there. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to cut this. Because my breaker, I've only got a 30 amp breaker, so I'm not going to be able to max it out. I'll put the machine on max and we'll see if it trips the breaker. And for two, this is really rusty. So I'm not sure how clean it needs to be able to cut, but we'll give it a shot and see. Again, just gonna max out the machine. It's at 65 amps. Again, so I'm just gonna max out the machine. It's at 65 amps. 97 PSI currently. Lower that down a little bit. '87, '88, and see if it does anything. Oh, almost made it all the way through. I think I just needed to spend a little bit more time going a bit slower for that. I'm going to try again a little bit further back so I'm not going over that same spot. Try to go right close to it. And try to go a little slower. pretty impressive. It actually cut right through it. Whoa, I am thoroughly impressed with that. That cut. Really cleanly all the way through. It's got a little bit of that, I think they call it dross at the bottom. It's kind of that metal that kind of drips below, but it knocks right off. You can see how clean that is at the max settings going through this 3/8 steel with really no issue at all. That is awesome. Yeah, it did cut. No issues there. Went right through it. Let me try here. It's really nasty and dirty. Up in this section here. Cut all the way through except for the beginning there, where I seem to have an issue with my starting. I'm going to try again right beside it. There we go. Okay, so that's all really impressive. We've done the clean 1/8 inch thick plate with no issues. Did some rusty steel. We did the 3/8 big thick plate with no issue. So the other thing I want to test is using this unit with 110 power. So I'm going to unplug it from the 220, plug in the 110, and then do some test cuts on this 1/8 and see how that works. Okay, so taking the included 220 to 110 adapter. Plug that in like that. Now we can plug this in to a regular North American 110 outlet. Turn the unit on. So you can see here, it's automatically sensed that we are now on 110 volt. So we're ready to go. PSI is showing 117, but that lowers when we hit the trigger to the actual true like running PSI. The voltage or amperage dropped to 30 amps maximum at 110, I think. Let's see what we'll crank up to. 45 amps maximum at the 110 amp setting. So let's just put it on 30 and see if we can do a test cut. Let's try that and see. Oh, and just tripped my 110 outlet breaker. So we are cutting. I tripped the breaker again, but it's the breaker on a power bar there. So let me unplug some things. So that seemed to help. Unplugging that was plugged in there, a battery charger. So let's continue and see what we can. So definitely was able to cut through this 1/8 inch thick plate. The breaker did drop right at the end. So it can definitely cut, this 1/8 inch thick plate. But you want to make sure if you're using this unit on 110, that it's on an outlet with nothing else sharing that specific outlet or other units. In my garage here, like I said, I've got one breaker off my main panel that says garage. It feeds that 110 outlet. It feeds another one on this side that my deep freezer is plugged into. It feeds the power bar, the garage door opener. A bunch of things are sharing that 15 amp outlet, so it's not ideal. If you're using the 220 option in your garage, like I have a 220 outlet set up, then you're most likely going to have a dedicated 220 volt breaker for that outlet, like I installed in my garage to do welding and things like that. So that's where you're not going to have an issue. You're going to be able to go through a lot thicker metals and stuff. With the 110 outlet, it can really vary depending on how many other things are plugged into that same specific breaker. And it can be, in a room, it could have multiple plugs drawing off of that same particular breaker. So you just got to watch out for that. So there you have it, Lawn Care Nation. That is the YesWelder Cut 65DS Pro Plasma Cutter. As you can see, pretty easy to be able to cut through any type of steel that I tried on it, whether it was the 1/8 inch thick clean plate or the old rusty scrap metal that I had around, all the way up to that 3/8 inch thick plate. On the 220 volt circuit, no issue. On the 110 volt circuit, you're limited by what you could do. It did the clean plate pretty easily. Kept tripping my breaker, but that's only because in my garage, that 15 amp 110 circuit is shared amongst a bunch of things, including the deep freezer, the garage door opener. There's a bunch of things in the garage. There's different battery chargers and stuff that are all plugged in into those 15 amp circuits that all lead to that same 15 amp breaker. So that's why having a dedicated circuit, even if it's just 15 amp, if you're going to use that option of the 110 volt to have that as a dedicated circuit, you'll get much better results. If you can do 220, I'd recommend that, because then you can use the full range of the machine. Even with my breaker being only 30 amp on this machine, it did not trip, even going slow and cutting through that 3/8 inch thick stuff. So that's pretty good, considering that this machine says it needs at least a 32 amp breaker. So not too bad there. The auto darkening helmet worked beautifully. I love that it has that full vision all the way around. My other welding helmet just is auto darkening as well, but it just has the glass on the front. So you're limited in your view looking straight. You can't see to the sides, your peripheral vision. So this is really handy, especially with the plasma cutter, because it lets you see all the sparks that are going around you, so you can kind of keep an eye on that. You don't have that tunnel vision of a normal welding helmet where something, could be happening, a fire starting because of some sparks or something off to the side that you won't see until you're finished welding. With this, because you have that whole peripheral vision, it really lets you see all the way around, which is pretty awesome. So I think with the plasma cutter, it all comes down to practice and technique. I repeatedly kept getting clean cuts throughout, but the first section, it wouldn't cut through. And I think that's just from how I'm starting the cut, kind of trying to be on top of it, versus when I did kind of, start to figure that out and start the cutting torch off of the material and pulling it through to start the cut. Then I got that clean cut all the way through and the piece would completely drop. Again, just getting used to the settings, knowing the amperages and air pressure to use can all affect how clean that cut is. But in terms of it, being easy to use, it's pretty simple to use. I love the flexibility in the hose here. There's a little kind of swivel joint here, which makes it nice and easy. It also has the same swivel joint on this side that plugs in. I like that it's only the two connections to the machine itself. A lot simpler than some older models that had some other wires going there that you had to plug in. I like that they include that 1/4-inch air adapter now that you can just plug your air line right into it. If you don't want to use that kind of press fitting with that clear tubing. Works fantastically. I've got a 60-gallon air compressor, so a fairly large unit, so had no issue. Only turned back on throughout all of these tests and cuts. It kicked on twice to refill the air compressor once it hit about 90 PSI from the 135 that it fills that tank to. So with that compressor, had no issue cutting through with all the metal and having it trying to keep up with anything. It was plenty of capacity. Again, that is a variable that depending on your compressor size will affect how much you can cut and how fast you can cut. You might have to stop and let your compressor to recover more quickly or more often. So depending on your compressor size, if you're using a smaller compressor, you might have to stop more frequently to let your compressor catch up and refill. But with my 60-gallon like big stand-up compressor, it had no issue at all going through any of this stuff. I didn't have to stop or anything halfway through. Had plenty of capacity. So overall, I think this YesWelder, so far so good, especially for somebody just starting out with a plasma cutter. Again, like I said, this is only the second time in 20 years that I've used a plasma cutter, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but super simple. Was able to make a bunch of cuts once I kind of figured out the settings and dialing things in. Super easy to use and made some pretty awesome cuts. So I've got a bunch of projects planned in the coming year that I'll be utilizing this plasma cutter. So stay tuned to the channel and you'll be seeing this guy popping up in videos from time to time. So I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find this YesWelder Cut 65 DS Pro plasma cutter, as well as this YesWelder Auto Darkening helmet. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this YesWelder plasma cutter. Do you have a plasma cutter that you utilize in your lawn care business for fabrication or repairs of equipment? Let me know down below. So that's it for this one, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.